Pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by advertising such notice in the Home News Tribune, the Asbury Park Press, the Board Office, the schools, and on Cablevision Channel 118 and Verizon Files Channel 24, and by filing such notice with the Township Clerk. This meeting was scheduled for Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. The Board will take formal action on payment of bills and other agenda items. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Giordano. The Old Bridge Township Board of Education acknowledges that the law of this state establishes that members of the public, including members of the board, have the right to record public board meetings using audio or video recording devices, provided that that act of recording does not interfere with the business of this public board meeting. Therefore, the board makes it known that any such recording is to be considered a private recording of the individual and in no manner represents the official record of this board. The board therefore takes no responsibility for such private recording and completely disavows any future use.
Roll call.
Ms. D'Antono?
Present.
Ms. Jodry?
Present.
Ms. Lent?
Present.
Mr. Marquetta?
Here.
Mr. Slade?
Here.
Mr. Singh? Mr. Silikowski? Mr. Weber?
Here.
Mr. Giordano?
Here.
Quorum exists.
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Who would like to read the Code of Ethics Corner next week? Yep. Jay Slade will read it. Approval of minutes, item 1. Any questions or discussion? Okay. We do not have our student representative to the board. He just graduated this morning, so congratulations. And now we'll move on to recognition, item 1. Can I have a motion?
D'Antuno will move. Lent will second.
Mr. Sardino or Mr. Domino?
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, we're going to move the board to recognize the following Old Bridge High School athletic teams on their accomplishments of the spring 2022-23 sports season. Girls lacrosse, Red Division champions, GMC conference champions. Boys volleyball, Red Division champions, GMC champions. Baseball, NJSAA Central Group 4 sectional champions. I think everyone from our community, within our schools, can all be proud of these teams that you're going to recognize tonight. Mr. Domino, all of them have been perennial teams on the rise over the course of the past few years. That obviously has a lot to do with the family support that these students are getting and the dedication that they're demonstrating, but also some top-level coaching on all three teams. So take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Citadino. Good evening. I'd like to start out by congratulating all spring sport athletes and families on an incredible season. Being able to successfully balance athletics and academics takes hard work, organization, and dedication. All of these attributes will assist our student athletes in their future endeavors, and I am incredibly proud to watch our athletes grow and develop while being part of our teams. Tonight, I'd like to introduce and celebrate 3 athletic programs, like Mr. Citadino said, for winning their division, conference, and/or sectional championships. So first up, we have our girls varsity lacrosse team. Here to accept the award is Coach Gajewski and the varsity team. Congratulations on winning the Red Division and conference championship. All right, next up, we have our boys varsity volleyball team. Here to accept the award is Coach Hopman and the varsity team. Congratulations on winning the Red Division and Conference Championship. During the season, the boys volleyball team was ranked #1 in the state of New Jersey and nationally ranked in the high school as #8 in the country. I'd also like to congratulate Coach Hopman on being named GMC Coach of the Year. Congratulations, guys. Last, we have our varsity baseball team. Here to accept the award is Coach Donahue and the varsity team. Congratulations on winning the Central Jersey Sectional Championship and making it to the Group 4 state finals for the first time in school history. I'd also like to congratulate Coach Donahue on being named GMC Coach of the Year and most recently Home News Tribune Coach of the Year. Great job. Once again, I'd like to congratulate all our spring sports and coaches. Our coaches put in countless hours to make sure our athletes are prepared on and off the field. Their love for the sports they coach is evident in all the ways they go above and beyond for our school and our athletes. Win or lose, it's an honor to work with them each and every day. Congratulations again. Happy summer. Go Knights.
I want to thank the seniors who graduated this morning and then took the time to come to the meeting and be part of their team. So thank you, seniors.
Any other discussion? Good. Congratulations. Roll call.
Ms. Jodrey,
Yes.
Ms. Lent,
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta,
Yes.
Mr. Slade,
Yes.
Mr. Singh,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mr. Antono,
Yes.
Mr. Giordano.
Yes.
Resolution 1 passes.
And okay. Rest of the items 2 through 7. Any questions or discussion? Okay. Moving on to the superintendent's report.
There'll be a report at next week's meeting. The report will be at next week's meeting.
Okay. Any correspondence? No correspondence. Okay. Any special committee reports, or any plans for next week? Okay. We move on to hearing of the residents on agenda items and Dr. Rico only.
Hello.
Okay. So nervous. I don't want to be so loud.
Hi, my name is Dana Marquetta, and I'm an Old Bridge resident. And over the past 11 years, all three of my kids have attended Grissom Elementary School with Dr. Rico, and my youngest is currently there. I am here tonight because the administration has made a completely unnecessary recommendation to transfer 2 elementary school principals, an elective recommendation that will further disrupt 750 elementary school students. This will further impact their education, social, emotional learning, and mental health. These children have been through so much, and to lose a person that they know and love becomes a tragedy. I have seen the tears from parents, students, and teachers, and it is completely overwhelming. These children love and adore him. Look who's here tonight to support him. I can firsthand attest to the love of and devotion of Dr. Rico for these kids. When my son Joseph was 8 years old, we found out he needed open heart surgery. It was the worst time in our lives, a pit every day in my stomach. Knowing we had to be there with Joe in a hospital in Long Island, and we had a daughter starting kindergarten in New Jersey, we knew this transition was not going to be easy. Dr. Rico and Mrs. Gallo were a staple in making sure Ava was fully taken care of and that her transition was an easy one. Not having your parents there for the first day of school, can you imagine that? It was very trying on my daughter, but Dr. Rico treated her as if he was her own. While my son was in the hospital, Dr. Rico made sure he reached out every day to check on Joe. He had the entire student body make cards, and not a day went by that he didn't call. Dr. Rico is much more to a principal at our school. He is a mentor, a friend, a positive role model, and according to my son Nicholas, it's his favorite person. These past 3 years have not been easy on any of these children. The social emotional aspect of losing such a constant figure like Dr. Rico will be devastating on these children. The pandemic was supposed to only last 14 days, and it took 3 years to return to normal. Dr. Rico was there for each and every one of these kids. We lost my dad during COVID, and Dr. Rico made sure that he checked on my family and I. He had a counselor reach out to my children. Nothing was easy during the pandemic, but knowing my kids had the support of a person like Dr. Rico brought light into a very dark situation. To you, Dr. Rico is just an employee of Old Bridge Township Public School District, but to us, he is so much more. I am an Old Bridge resident that votes, and I am here tonight to ask you to vote no to his transfer and let my son and all these students keep their favorite person.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to hand something out before I start. All right, good evening. My name is Vincent Mamalito. I'm a father of 2 children that attend Grissom Elementary School. I'm here out of concern for the recommended transfer of our principal, Dr. Rico. In front of me, I have the policy on assignment and transfers of teaching staff members, which includes principals. That's what's being handed out right now. So the policy reads, the Board of Education and the Superintendent will strive to assign teaching staff members to positions in which their service will best benefit the educational program of the district. Each teaching staff member must possess their certificate and endorsement appropriate to the position to which he or she is appointed. The Superintendent shall require each newly employed or reassigned teaching staff member to exhibit the appropriately endorsed certificate before the member assumes responsibility for the duties of the position. The board will approve an assignment that requires a teaching staff member's transfer to a different building, different seniority, employment category, to a different tenure position, or to a non-tenure position only upon the recommendation of the superintendent and by a roll call majority vote of the full membership of the board. The board will not withhold its approval of the superintendent's recommendation for arbitrary and capricious reasons. A teaching staff member may be transferred without the teaching staff member's consent, except that no tenured teaching staff member will be transferred to a different tenure position or to a non-tenure position without the member's consent. The superintendent shall recommend such teaching staff member transfers as will contribute to the provision of a thorough and efficient educational system. No teaching staff member shall be transferred for disciplinary reasons. The board will consider and may grant the request of a teaching staff member who requests transfer to a new position. So, as the policy states, the superintendent recommends, not decides, recommends. That is the superintendent. Who was the board notified by for the personnel change? When did the board receive the recommendation for the transfer of principals? Who sent it and what did it say? It is you, the board, that votes to determine if the transfer happens or not. I'm asking you, members of the board, that us parents who voted in to publicly vote no, because no one knows what's best for the kids than us parents, and us parents know that Dr. Rico being the principal at Grissom is what's best for them. Thank you.
Hi, hi, my name is Gianna Melito, and I am a student in Grissom. I do not think that there is a reason that Dr. Rico should be leaving. The whole school loves him so much, and every kid was crying on the last day of school, and I do not think every kid, even me, should be crying on the last day of school. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Amanda Caffrey. I was born and raised in Old Bridge, and I graduated from Old Bridge Public Schools in 2000. I have 2 children that attend Grissom Elementary School, and I'm here to tell you that the recommendation to transfer Principal Arrico and Principal Coletti is not in the best interests of the students. Our children have been through excessive transitions, things that we never imagined. Learning gaps have been created, social and emotional learning has been stifled, and children's mental health has suffered. They crave stability, consistency, and familiar faces they can trust to acclimate back to in-person learning. I'm going to hand you something. It's okay. This is a petition that's signed by 626 people. While that's being passed around, I'd like to take you through the journey of my son Patrick, who will be entering 4th grade in the fall. Okay, so kindergarten at Old Bridge Public Schools. This was a new and exciting year. Patrick started the same school district that I went to my whole life. Okay, he was making new friends, learning to read sight words, and was able to ride the bus to school. It's pretty cool. Then on March 11th, the pandemic happened. Right? The district goes virtual. This was new to all and challenging, to say the least. My 5-year-old son had to learn how to use my laptop. He lost all interaction with his peers. These were uncharted waters for the students, the teachers, the parents, and the district. I think it's fair to say that we were all struggling to keep our heads above water. Then there's 1st grade, AKA the year of virtual learning. Patrick transitioned back to Grissom, met new faces via Teams, was challenged with learning to type on a laptop as a 6-year-old. He also struggled to learn handwriting in a virtual classroom. Slow internet connections resulted in missed lessons and learning gaps. 2nd grade, AKA the year of cohorts and quarantine. Sickness and exposure kept Patrick home for a good portion of the fall and winter. I felt like Patrick and his classmates were out as often as they were in. Cohorts meant attending school for 2 days a week with only half of your classmates. Patrick put so much pressure on himself to achieve while he was struggling to keep up. And then there's 3rd grade, this last school year, which was our first normal year. Patrick and his classmates were thriving. With the support of Dr. Rico and his teachers at Grissom, he successfully closed his ELA learning gaps and is no longer in RTI. And now we find out at the very end of the school year on June 2nd that there has been a recommendation to shake up our children again, that our principal has been recommended for involuntary transfer to a different elementary school and district. No. During the last 4 years, the district has had no control over these other transitions, but they did happen. I'm not sure that we even know the true impact of everything that's occurred as far as our children's learning, social and emotional, and mental health. Our children have paid the price. I shared with you a petition signed by 262 people who agree that transferring our principals will be harmful to over 750 students. Do you guys know how many people graduated from Old Bridge High School this morning? The number is less than the students that will be impacted by this transfer. Let that sink in. 738, I want to say, is the number. Okay? 768. Close. Read the names that I handed you on the petition. They're voting taxpayers in Old Bridge who are looking for the Board of Ed to make the right decision for our children, to not disrupt them again. We ask you to publicly vote no. Our children need you.
My name is Katina Butts. I'm an Old Bridge resident, and I have 3 children in Grissom Elementary. I am here tonight to tell you to vote no to the involuntary transfer of Dr. Arrico recommended by our superintendent. Dr. Arrico is the heart and soul of Grissom School. I speak for most parents when I say our children have a bond with Dr. Arrico that goes unmatched. I personally can sit here all day and tell you stories and personal experiences of how Dr. Arrico has been there for my children. Our children already need to adjust to a new guidance counselor due to retirement and a new secretary due to family medical leave. We as parents understand that the board is not in control of those 2 changes, but the board is in control of moving Dr. Arrico. There are a lot of factors to consider, and all of these changes alter the entire structure of Grissom. Board of Ed members, as you know, we take pride as a district on social emotional learning, and now we are moving the 2 pillars of that out of Grissom. How do you expect these children to cope? How can they function, and how many changes should they have to endure? It takes a lot of time for a child to build trust with somebody. Imagine the entire Old Bridge Public Schools administration having to trade places with East Brunswick, adjusting to different rules and how things run as a whole. Think about how disruptive that is, the teaching staff as well as the members and the students. What our superintendent is recommending makes no sense. We are doing this, and what is the reason behind it? We have no answers. How does this benefit the kids? We, the parents, who are also here as voting members and taxpayers, ask you to publicly vote no to the superintendent's recommendation for the sake of our children.
Good evening. My name is Christina Mazzone. Before I start, I just want to hand these out. Good evening. My name is Christina Mazzone, and I have 2 daughters who currently attend Grissom Elementary. I'm here tonight to address some concerns regarding my children and all 750 plus children and families affected in this recent switch of principals. At the end of the day, that's who and what should matter most, the children. I have gone back and forth with Assistant Superintendent Holker asking questions about this switch, as you could see in the thread that I'm handing out. Just wanted to gain some clarity on it. And even though I have received responses, I have not received one answer. I would like to read you one generic response that I received, and I quote, "Thank you for reaching out to us and expressing your concerns about the transfer of your school principal. We understand that changes in leadership can be unsettling, especially when it directly impacts the school community. The decision to transfer principals was made after careful consideration and evaluation of various factors, including the needs of our schools and the professional development opportunities of our staff. It was aimed at bringing in fresh perspectives and fostering continued growth within the educational environment. While we acknowledge your concerns, we assure you that the decision was made in the best interest of our students and the overall growth of our schools. We remain committed to providing the highest quality of education and maintaining a positive learning environment in all of our schools. It is a great compliment to our leaders that they have been hand-selected to address new challenges and assignments to move the district forward. Thank you for your understanding and ongoing support as we navigate through this transition together. We are confident that our principals, regardless of their assignment, will continue to bring positivity and contribute to the continued success of our students." End quote. Throughout our emails back and forth, never once was the actual well-being of our children addressed. One emphasis Mrs. Holker stated was, quote, "It is a great compliment to our leaders that they have been hand-selected to address new challenges and assignments to move the district forward." And yes, it is a great compliment to the principals, but correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't this an involuntary transfer? And who were they hand-selected by? If this was something the principals were requesting, it would be a voluntary transfer. I think we can all agree that when someone is unwillingly moved in life, it prevents them from performing to their full potential. Dr. Arrico has taken this school so far, but he is not done yet. So my question is, how is this change beneficial to our students and their well-being? After all my fellow parents have just explained, our children have gone through enough in the past couple years. Do you honestly think this change will better all students involved? How will this change help close educational gaps? How will it improve social and emotional learning? How will this help their mental health? My children who are here tonight have been devastated about this news since I told them, along with my family and the families of our schools. Assistant Superintendent Mrs. Holker, you also stated, quote, "We remain committed to providing the highest quality of education and maintaining a positive learning environment in all our schools." End quote. So why is it only these 2 schools that are being affected when there are, in fact, 11 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and 1 high school in our district? How can this decision be made by people who come to visit our schools a handful of times a year at most and have never been there to see the day-to-day interactions between staff and students? How is it that you guys can say, quote, "The decision to transfer principals was made after careful consideration and evaluation of various factors, including the needs of our schools and the professional development opportunities of our staff," end quote, when they are unaware about what actually goes on inside our schools? The turnout we have here tonight between parents and students should prove of how strong of a community we are and how we feel about this recommendation to switch our 2 principals. We stand here tonight asking our fellow voted-in board members to publicly vote no to this change. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Corinne Paglusi, a parent at Grissom Elementary School. I'm here tonight to ask the board to vote no regarding the recommendation of Dr. Arrico to be transferred to McDivitt School. A life is not important except for the impact it has on others. The impact Dr. Arrico has had on students is undeniable. Dr. Arrico has always been there to support my family with all learning and medical needs of my daughter, Marissa. Unfortunately, because of COVID, my daughter Marissa experienced a half a year of preschool. The reason Marissa did not experience preschool was because she had an unknown medical condition where she vomits, she's malnourished, doesn't grow or gain weight. When she entered kindergarten, she was extremely behind. She was unable to hold a pencil, recognize numbers, identify her letters. By October, it became very obvious that she needed additional help. With the help and support of Dr. Arrico, I was able to identify that she had a vision processing disorder and was able to get a 504 in place. Additionally, when Marissa was 1.5 years old, I was entering Children's Hospital of Pennsylvania for her to have a feeding tube. On that day, I dropped off my daughter Brianna to school. She was hysterical crying. She was scared, afraid of what would happen. And as that happened, Dr. Arrico was right by her side to reassure her and let her know that everything would be okay. During that day, he called me to let me know that Brianna was okay. To me, that embodies what a principal is supposed to be. On June 15th, the last day of school, that was supposed to be a joyous day, except in Grissom Elementary School, Dr. Arrico was there to wipe the children's tears. Dr. Cittadino nor Mrs. Hooker were not there to wipe the tears of our children. All 200 students were hysterically crying Nobody wanted to leave that day. Nobody wanted to get on the buses. But there Dr. Arrigo was to wipe their tears and make them feel better. And not only that, he reassured them that Mrs. Coletti would be there as a good principal to support them next year. That is everything a principal is supposed to be. Why is it necessary to create so much change in both schools, impacting over 750 students? At Grissom School, possibly the principal changing, the secretaries out on FMLA. What about the janitorial what about the janitor or the nurse? Are they going to McDivitt? We don't know. Also, additionally, today I submitted a request, an open public records request for all digital and email communications that were sent and received by Old Bridge Public School Administration, including but not limited to the Superintendent Cittadino and Assistant Superintendent Mrs. Hoker, regarding the transfer of principals between Dr. Arrigo and Mrs. Coletti. Grissom School runs like a small family. With the change of leadership comes the change of character and morale of the students. In a negative learning environment, students may feel uncomfortable, unsupported, and afraid to make mistakes. This environment does not force students to toughen up or put in more effort. Instead, they are likely to judge the course of themselves negatively and become unmotivated. To learn that Dr. Arrigo, the pillar of our school and social and emotional learning for Grissom, someone who has supported my family so much, is being recommended for the transfer by our superintendent and assistant superintendent. Dr. is not going to benefit our children at our schools. There is no valid reason on how this is going to improve the social and emotional learning at Grissom. This recommendation has me questioning the guiding factors by our administrators, Superintendent Cittadino and Assistant Superintendent Hoker. It is not normal to swap two principals unless something happens like a retirement or closing of schools. As a taxpayer and voting resident in Old Bridge, I'm here to tell you, Board of Education, please vote no.
Good evening, Superintendent and members of the board. First of all, I'd like to say congratulations to the 2023 graduates and all the teams that were here tonight being acknowledged. Now I'm here as a concerned parent of a child at Grissom Elementary School. When our family made the decision to move to New Jersey, we knew we wanted to move to Old Bridge. More specifically, we knew we wanted to move to the district where Grissom Elementary was. This was because a friend of mine whose children have gone to the school past and present had always raved about it. We were lucky enough to be able to find the right house for our family, and it was only down the street from Grissom. We were so happy to be part of a small school community where our kids were welcomed immediately. This amazing school community is made up of parents, teachers, and more importantly, the principal. Dr. Arrigo is the wizard behind the curtain. He knows not only who each child is, but he knows their families. He knows what they're into. He is the beating heart of the Grissom community. My older daughter is now going into 8th grade, but my youngest daughter is now going into 4th grade. She had her kindergarten year stolen away from her thanks to COVID. When it was time for 1st grade and there was no in-school instruction, we made the decision to move her to a neighborhood private school that was in person. But when 1st grade was over, we gave her the choice of staying in her new school or going back to Grissom. For her, it wasn't even a choice. She didn't want to be anywhere but Grissom. She wanted to be with her friends, her teachers, and her principal. Now, rumors are almost always rumors, but occasionally a rumor bears weight. After everything these kids have been through these last few years, to make a unilateral decision to remove Dr. Arrigo as principal and replace him with someone who is set to retire in a year is a cruel and unusual punishment for our children. They don't deserve that. They don't deserve to be pawns in a political game. And for anyone to say that this isn't a political move is just plain lying. I'm sure the McDivitt principal is well loved and a good person, but I don't see anybody from McDivitt. I only see Grissom people here. These kids, they came out to support their principal. They don't want to lose their principal. Our small community is standing behind the principal that we feel is in the best interest for our children, our school, and our community, Dr. Arrigo. We ask the superintendent and the board to please let our principal stay at Grissom and stay with our children and publicly vote no to the transfer.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Tara Finkelstein, and my son Gavin attends Grissom Elementary School. My son Dylan also just graduated from Salk, but he also went through Grissom. I've been a part of Grissom since 2013. For years, I've heard rumors of our school being shut down and worried needlessly how I would manage the morning routine at a school possibly further away. Now, I'm worried with reason. Some of you may be aware of our principal, and obviously after everyone gathering here tonight, that Dr. Anthony Arrico has been transferred to McDivitt Elementary as of July 1st. This is absolutely involuntarily. Some of you may not be aware of this. Well, now you are. For those of you who have been informed that he put this request in himself, I'm here to make it clear that it is not accurate. I'd like to clarify that Dr. Arrico's transfer is not something he hoped for, not something he initiated, nor does he have a choice in this decision regarding his career. Seems very militant if you ask me. He was given an order that he is moving to another school, and that's that. He even had some folks in higher positions from the union pay him a visit to confirm this without him reaching out. It seems a little strange to me. So, why am I here? Well, I'm responding in person to the responses I received from a handful of the Board of Ed members after submitting my very lengthy letter, like many other Grissom parents, of great concern and consideration to keep our principal at Grissom. Now, if any of you here, or some of you here definitely know, that I am no fan of Dr. Arrico. He's a great principal. The kids absolutely love him, but he and I do not see eye to eye on personal issues. He actually had me removed from the PTA more than once, but I'm back. Great. And he actually really reached out and went out of his way recently to say what a good job I've done in the last couple events, and that really made me happy because he finally saw what I'm able to do and how I'm able to help out Grissom. So, I believe I speak for most of the school. We, the parents, and our children do not want a new principal. No offense to Miss Coletti, I'm sure she's lovely, but I don't see anybody here from McDivitt. Maybe they're in the restroom, I'm not sure. The last few weeks of school have been some of the saddest days I've seen at Grissom. In fact, I don't ever recall seeing the students and teachers sad, well, except during COVID when we couldn't be together in school. While everyone should be excited about the end of the year festivities and commencements, they were anything but enthusiastic. Stressed, sad, unhappy, depressed, and feeling disappointed is what immediately comes to my mind when describing the end of the year school climate. The end of the year is the second most wonderful time of the year, and it was everything but wonderful. It was honestly just painful. It was really painful. You had to be there. And I was there in the hallway to drop off gifts that I forgot to leave, and I purposely wanted to not be part of the event of saying goodbye. Well, I unfortunately got stuck in the hallway because instead of the last day of school where the kids were running out the doors with giant smiles and high fives to everyone, they were dragging their feet with blobs of tears and sad faces. I saw students in all grades, including their teachers, sobbing. I use the word sobbing because crying would have been better. Everyone is hurting. I even cried. And again, I am not his biggest fan. There is a point that I probably wrote a 20-paragraph email to Dr. Hoker on how much I can't stand him. So for me to come up here and actually take his side and say what an amazing principal he is, I mean that from the heart, from my heart. And I know, like both of my boys, they absolutely love the principal, as well as all these other students here and parents and the teachers. What's worse is that Dr. Arrico was crying too because he's hurting. The entire Grissom body is mourning the loss of our principal. And what's so upsetting is that with a simple reconsideration of the board, the misery could be over. Dr. Arrico isn't gone per se. He's very much here. He's very much alive. We just need you to vote no. No to transferring him to McDivitt. Give our school what it needs. Nobody wants Dr. Arrico to leave. Nobody. Not even me. My son has 1 year left there, and I would be happy if he stayed there for the next 10 years. Not my son, but Dr. Arrico. Why? Well, I don't know. Gavin might be there for a couple more years. Why don't we have a say? The students, the parents, us taxpayers who pay all the salaries of the school, the board, and everybody that is in that school. We are the taxpayers. We are the ones that know best for our children. Why don't we have a say in this? Moreover, why doesn't Dr. Arrico have a say? Dr. Arrico is the heart and soul of the school to the students. They adore him. He commands their respect, unconditional love, and loyalty. Did I mention we are also losing our guidance counselor? That was quite unsettling to some when I thought about it after Miss Bensley put in her retired year.
That's your time, ma'am.
I'm sorry. Anyway, if you can just vote to please not transfer him, we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
evening. Good evening, board, family, friends, but most of all, our children. This is my first year as an Old Bridge school mom. My child was in private school prior. She is now going to be in 4th grade this coming September.
Can you provide your name, please?
My name, Kristen Geary. So my daughter Kaylin, going into a new school. She was very nervous but excited because of the neighborhood that we live in. The moms and children raved about how great Old Bridge Township was, but how awesome not only Grissom was, but the great Dr. Rico. So while my daughter was very nervous, she was also very excited, but she still wanted to know what she was walking into. So I reached out to Miss Morabel, the secretary, to schedule a meeting to see if we could just view the school. And to my surprise, Dr. Rico called me personally and asked for my availability of when I could come to meet him. Not when he was available or he'd only be there certain hours during the summer. When could I come with Kaylin? He met us, my daughter and I, for over 2 hours, went over every inch of the school, even walked her into the school on how the first day would go. Kaylin very excited. First few weeks, I'm getting calls and emails from Dr. Rico. Oh, Kaylin had a great day. She's smiling. She's making so many friends. Again, first-time parent to the school. Very nervous if my kid is adapting, making friends. And here she is. Fast forward to the last day of school. Last day of school where everybody's joyous. It's summer. Our kids happy, summer. And as you've heard from students and parents, every single child, including the teachers, including us parents, are hysterically crying, tears. A group of girls wanted to say goodbye to Dr. Rico one more time. We couldn't find him. Why? Because Dr. Rico was sitting on the concrete, Indian style, signing everybody's book, pillowcase, knapsack, whatever they wanted him to sign, and hugged everybody individually and signed each and every yearbook. And he did that for each and one of these kids. So board, as a taxpayer and voting resident, to transfer Principal Rico and Principal Coletti. Thank you for your time.
My name is Riley, and my brother and I are a student from Grissom. On the last day of school, we had to instead of celebrating, we were crying. Our school is falling apart. I don't want that to happen. My name is Amelia DeLuca, and I am a student at Grissom. I just want to say I do not want Dr. Rico to leave. He's the best principal we could ever get. Please do not make him leave.
Okay, it's almost impossible to follow, so I'm just going to try to get through my couple words here. My name is Cindy Solis. On behalf of myself and my son, Rocco, who absolutely loves Dr. Rico, former student at Grissom, we both know Dr. Rico belongs in Grissom. He has made a very safe, warm, nurturing atmosphere for the children. He makes sure to know every child, their family, their likes, their fears, their struggles, their concerns, and their achievements. He cared for my son like family during struggles we had personally, and for that, I'll always be grateful. I know he'd be amazing anywhere, but he honestly fits like a puzzle piece in Grissom. It just works so well with him leading the way. And in all reality, these kids struggled enough with COVID to have another hit like this. My son is in 6th grade now and still asks to go back and see Dr. Rico. Grissom was always Rocco's safe place because of Dr. Orico. Definitely not just a principal. He's different, and so is Grissom. They belong together. Please vote no. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rocco, and I used to go to Grissom, but now I'm in 6th grade. And I just want to say Dr. Rico was like a really good principal, and he was always there for me when I was in Grissom. Thank you.
My name is Marissa. Dr. Rico is a very good principal. Whenever Dr. Rico knows I'm not feeling well, he checks on me and on me to see how I am feeling. Vote no and keep him at Grissom School. Once is a Gator, always a Gator. Hi, my name is Isabella Pansini. Like Dr. Rico, no, I go to Grissom School, and like Dr. Rico says, we may be small, but we sure are mighty. I don't want to go to school in September without Dr. Rico's warm welcome and big hugs. Please vote no. Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Michaela. Dr. Rico is my principal, and I don't want him to leave because on the first day of school, when I was crying, Dr. Rico came out and held my hand and took me right to my teacher, and I was really so sad because I really did. I wanted to go back to my mom, and he actually helped me for the rest of the school year. My name is Emma, and I'm from Grissom School, and I don't want Dr. Rico to leave because I always give him a hug when I get into school.
Good evening. My name is Brianna Paglucci.
And my name is Ava Marquez. We are former Grissom Elementary students asking the Board of Education to vote no upon the recommendation to transfer Dr. Rico to McDivitt Elementary School.
Our years at Grissom were very memorable. However, the person that made them so special is Dr. Rico. Throughout every single hardship that we experienced at Grissom, Dr. Rico was always by our side with a smiling face.
When I was in kindergarten, my older brother Joe was in the hospital, and all I knew was that I could not see my parents for many days. Throughout that week, Dr. Rico checked on me to make sure I was okay. My favorite memory at Grissom with Dr. Rico was silly stringing him. Not many people would let us do all the things that we did to him. We taped him to the wall, he gave us special lunches, participated in the color run with us, and so much more. He always found a way to see the good in everyone and everything.
I didn't know one day, randomly in March of 2020, that I would never step foot into Grissom School again as a student. All throughout quarantine, Dr. Rico reassured us that one day we would be back, and that we would be back in 2 weeks and everything would be okay. As the weeks passed on, going to school turned into endless hours behind a screen. Despite what our reality was, Dr. Rico still made efforts to give 5th grade a special graduation and send-off. He was still there with his smiling face, and he never left our side. He has taught us that dedication and loyalty will take you very far in life, and we will forever be grateful for it. And we believe that everyone should have someone like that in their school.
Although we are not Grissom students anymore, we want my brother
and my sister, as well as all the other students attending Grissom School, to have the same experience as we did. To you guys, he may just be a principal, but to us, he is so much more than that.
As former Grissom students, we are here to tell the Board of Education publicly to vote no.
Thank you for your time.
Please vote Dr. Rico. No. No. Love Dr. Rico.
This is Sophia DePola.
And Emma Putz.
And we are the 2023 graduates of Grissom Elementary School.
The news we got when we were told Dr. Rico was getting moved to McDivitt, we were heartbroken.
I don't know how Grissom would be if he's not there with us.
He worked so hard to make the school the way it is now.
He knew how to make us smile on the worst days.
He makes every kid feel special.
When you cast your vote, please vote no. Thank you.
This principal can never leave. I love Dr. Rico. My name is South Cologne, and I don't want Dr. Rico to leave because he's the best principal in the world.
My name is Joseph Marchetta, and I have so many memories with Dr. Rico, and you should not move him.
We love Dr. Rico.
Hello, my name is Gina. I'm an Old Bridge resident, mother of two. I came here as a concerned resident, and I am friends of a couple parents here. This district promotes and encourages social emotional learning throughout the curriculum. With that being said, I find it extremely hypocritical to make the recommendation to move Dr. Arrico out of Grissom School. Think about every student from Grissom School and what they have went through the past 2 years through the pandemic. Now Mr. Cittadino, who has his contract being bought out and will be gone in 2025, wants to disrupt the pupils of Grissom School. Not only just that, but Grissom is losing their school nurse, their guidance counselor, I heard their secretary. Picture it, a new staff for the upcoming school year for the children at Grissom. That's not a pretty picture to me, knowing about the children's social and emotional well-being from the pandemic, coupled with some students behind academically, and now being stripped of the core staff helping shape their education. If anyone truly cares about the children in this case, please do the right thing and vote no on Dr. Arrico leaving Grissom School. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Denise Barrett. I'm an Old Bridge resident. I'm a parent of now a 5th grade student at Grissom Elementary School. I'm here to ask you to vote no on the, sorry. I'm asking you to keep Dr. Rico at Grissom Elementary School. I will not lie, my heart dropped into my stomach as I read the devastating news of his transfer. I could not stop crying knowing that the students of Grissom Elementary School would miss out on a one-of-a-kind principal for the next school year. A principal provides leadership that affects every teacher and student as well as the parents and families. They are vital to the success of a school. Dr. Arrico is vital to Grissom. As a public school employee myself and as an occupational therapist, I understand that change happens. However, a change in principal affects the vital inner workings of the school environment, which includes staff. I have spoken to Dr. Arrico about school culture on many occasions. He makes sure that the teachers create the school climate he strives for, a learning environment where students are happy, feel confident, and have a love for their school. These factors greatly impact student performance. He has worked tirelessly to ensure Grissom School is operating at its fullest potential. With a change in principal, There are now new stressors for teachers, including understanding new expectations in school climate. Teachers have so much on their plates already, with students having more worries and anxieties since COVID. It is vital to have school staff that work together to ensure student success. Changing the leader of the school will impact teachers and therefore their student performance. It has also been discussed that the incoming principal will be retiring next year or the following year. I know that when I retire as a public school employee, I would want my school family to celebrate with me. Those people who I have worked with for years and who are my second family. I would not want to be transferred a year before my retirement to end my dedicated career with all new coworkers. As a parent, I have witnessed firsthand the amazing work of Dr. Arrico. I knew at kindergarten parent orientation when I heard Dr. Arrico speak that Grissom Elementary School was a special place. I could hear the love he has for the school and for his students. I knew that we had our home away from home, and this is what I wanted for my child, to go to a school where she was cared for and where she was being instilled with a love of learning. When students feel safe and cared for, that is when they do their best. I can attest that the students of Grissom feel this way. I have been honored to observe this in the hallways of Grissom through the last 5 years. As my daughter entered her first year as one of his kindergartners, I got to see that passion he has for each individual child. I was volunteering at school as a class mom for a holiday craft. My daughter began to cry in the hallway. Dr. Rico happened to be walking down the same hallway. He knelt down next to her, whispered his words of magic, and she was back to her old self. This is what happens every day with Dr. Rico. Magic. His students have learned respect through his kindness and his actions. To receive respect, you need to earn it. When he raises his hand in the air, he gets an entire school to listen and focus. Again, the Dr. Arrico magic. I've been able to be an observer during drop-off in the morning and pick up in the afternoon. Every morning, he greets each student as they enter the building. He makes sure that every student knows that he is there for them and that each student starts their day with a smile, a high five, or whatever that student needs. At the end of the day, Dr. Rico is there to wave goodbye with a smile that beams with pride for his students. He is outside, rain or shine, always with a big smile and words of encouragement. He knows each student and is attuned to their individual needs. He is open with parents, always communicating with parents, and keeping us involved as part of the Grissom Elementary School community. Of all of the school-based factors that affect student performance, principal leadership is one of the most influential. Dr. Arrico strives to make Grissom a place where children love to learn. He has also been instrumental in creating a positive school culture that fosters and encourages respect for all students. Dr. Arrico has been actively involved in working with the PTA and implemented activities which have allowed students to learn, excel, and grow beyond the classroom. You can see the love the children have for Dr. Arrico. Due to COVID, is that my time? Oh, okay. Well, I'll just skip. I can keep going. Oh, thank you. Due to COVID, Grissom students missed out on almost a year and a half of his warmth and devotion to the school and students. These children are finally back to a typical school year to only transfer their principal. Again, it is also my understanding that the incoming principal is planning on retiring in the next year or two. So then the children of Grissom not only missed out due to COVID, they will have a new principal for a year or two, only to have another change in principal. This is confusing for the children with the change in leadership and expectations. This does not keep the loving school culture alive. This will negatively impact student performance and their social emotional learning. I have witnessed firsthand the negative impact COVID has had on children and their social emotional development. In conclusion, principal turnover can disrupt school improvement efforts and hurt student and teacher performance. It affects the very culture of the school. I believe that losing such a dedicated leader would be detrimental to the Grissom school community. It's not fair nor justified to the Grissom students since the incoming principal will only be there a short time. This creates inconsistencies for families, staff, and students, as well as affects social emotional development. Dr. Rico has demonstrated an unwavering commitment to our Grissom family, students, and staff. I believe that his leadership is essential to the continued success of our school. Therefore, I urge those responsible for making this decision to strongly consider their vote and allow our principal to continue serving in this role. Please keep the magic alive at Grissom Elementary School. I ask you to vote to keep Dr. Rico at Grissom. As a parent of a now 5th grade student, there would be no greater joy than watching my daughter receive her certificate from Dr. Rico at the 5th grade moving up ceremony. To have the principal who supported my daughter since she was a kindergartner at the 5th grade moving up ceremony would be the greatest finish to her educational career at Grissom Elementary School. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kelly Skolnick. My son's going to be in 4th grade at Grissom next year. When my son was in kindergarten, Dr. Arico personally called me to tell me my son wasn't eating his lunch. I packed him chicken nuggets every day. He loved chicken nuggets. Dr. Arico told me, he gave me some ideas on how to get him to eat it. He was eating them cold. And he told me, warm them up before you send them to school. So that's what I did, and my son was eating them. What principal would call you directly to tell you that your son is not eating his lunch? I don't think many would. These kids have been through so much change. My husband passed away from COVID 2 years ago. Dr. Arico came to his funeral with the counselor and my son's 1st grade teacher. He met all my family. After he sent me a little note, he said, "Dear Mrs. Skolnick, this is from the staff and I. We will take good care of your son." My son has no father. He comes to Grissom. He sees Dr. Arico, who is a role model to him. He also, Miss Bensley, who is also retiring, will not be there next year. Ms. Morabel will not be there next year. So there's so much change for my son. So as a taxpayer and a voting resident, I'm here today to tell Old Bridge Board of Education to publicly vote no on the recommendation to transfer Principal Arico and Principal Coletti.
Hey everyone, good evening. My name is Jeff Finkelstein. I have 2 sons. One son graduated from Grissom, just graduated from Salk, and the other one is going to 5th grade at Grissom. So Dr. Rico is a really good role model for the school. Throughout the last few years, the kids really need some stability in their lives with the whole COVID thing going on. A lot of the students look up to him. He commands a room. If you know him, you know what I'm talking about. Some people mentioned about he put his arm up and everyone just like silence. They know Arico was there, and just please keep him at Grissom. So a lot of kids will be happy. Thanks a lot.
Good evening, board members. My name is Paddy Caffrey. I'm the father of 2 children who are students at Grissom Elementary. I stand before you tonight and tell you from the bottom of my heart that without Dr. Arico in my children's lives through the early years of school, things would have been a lot different. Dr. Arico has helped them immensely and is a real father figure, not only for my children but for all of the children that attend Grissom Elementary. My daughter has special needs, and when I say that Dr. Arico has been an advocate for her, that is truly an understatement. I want to emphasize to you how this change will not have a positive impact on the children of Grissom Elementary. Rather than speaking on the details which have already been discussed prior to me standing here, I want to touch on something that just doesn't quite add up to me. First of all, I want to remind all the parents here that we all share the same goal, which is we want to do everything that we can to ensure our kids' well-being. I think it's fair to state that that is something that we can all agree on. This situation is clearly a lot of change for young and vulnerable children, and I do not understand how the district can think that it is a good idea. For children in Oldbridge School District from middle school onwards, to have an assistant principal who travels with them through middle school, and then again the same thing happens in high school. What is the reason for this? Well, I am assuming that the consistency is considered beneficial for these children and young adults, and that is why it is implemented the way it is. Now, how is it beneficial for those kids to have that consistency but not our younger children? There has been nothing but change over the past few years. Isn't it time that we start giving them some stability in their lives? We are the advocates for our children, and it is up to us and you as the Board of Education, who we have entrusted in to make the right decisions for our children and to be their voice. The children of Grissom Elementary are young and vulnerable, and these ongoing unnecessary changes in their lives needs to stop. Let's all work together to do what is right by our children. I come before you tonight to ask you to publicly vote no to the recommendation of the involuntary transfer of Dr. Orico.
Good evening. My name is Chris Pancini. I'm a father of 3 daughters, 2 of which that currently attend Grissom Elementary. First and foremost, I would like thank everybody for coming out here, kids, parents, and everybody speaking. To me, just as a human, this speaks volumes about who we're talking about and manifest so positively about Dr. Orico. Tonight, from what I gathered, in which all I agree, are a bunch of questions that we want transparency. We want to know why. Why was this change recommended? Who does this recommendation benefit? Because it absolutely does not benefit our children. After the last couple of tough years due to COVID, we were finally feeling some type of normalcy. Why throw another curveball at these poor innocent kids? For them, their mental and educational development, this is unnecessary. As the Board of Education, the students should come first. At a time where children's mental health is at an all-time low, suicide rates for children at an all-time high, how do you think this recommendation will help the social and emotional learning of our children? The night I told my children Dr. Orico was leaving, I literally had to peel my kids out of the bath and watch them cry themselves to sleep. As a young parent, that was one of the toughest nights that I was presented with. I knew there was nothing that I could do or say to make my kids feel better at that very moment. I then had to watch my kids, along with all the other kids at Grissom, cry and be sad for 2 whole weeks, asking questions we had no answers to. In a time when they should have been running out of school looking forward to the last day and the start of summer, they came out hysterical crying. Some not wanting to get on the bus because no one wanted to say goodbye. I wish you could see how our school was that day. No child should ever have to feel that way, and me as a parent, I should never have to console my kid in that way. You know you must be doing something right when the only person all kids should stay away from in school is that one person they all don't want to leave and are devastated to see go. So kudos to Dr. Orico for the unbelievable strong bond and trust he has made with not only my kids and my family, but all the kids and families at Grissom. Trust is not easily given to kids. It is earned. This man has earned the trust, the love, respect that is unmeasurable through his presence. From my own life experience, I know when we can't control what's happening to us, we can only control our response. And that's where we gain our little sense of power here. And although this is out of my control, this is my only way to publicly respond to this poor recommendation that, in my opinion, does not put our children first. We kindly, very kindly ask you to put us and our children and our families into consideration as our elected members of our board while you publicly vote no. Please vote no.
Hi everyone. My name is Christine Rue and I'm a parent at McDivitt School. I've been there since 2015 when my son started kindergarten. I had no intention of speaking tonight, but because of everything that you guys have said, I wanted you to know that we are also here. Mrs. Coletti is a wonderful, wonderful person. You would be lucky to have her. I understand why you don't, for the same reasons why, even though Dr. Rico is probably lovely as well, we are perfectly happy with the way things are right now. I agree with everything that you said. She has done all of the same things for our children that he has done for you guys. We have almost 550 kids. It's a huge undertaking what she does for us in this school. And like I said, we have all the same stories. When my daughter needed assistance, we went through kindergarten COVID as well. So we've done all of this. And she is amazing. She has been nothing but wonderful to my family personally. And she keeps my kids safe. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. I do believe she should retire in the school that she built, as far as we're concerned. I don't know when that will be. So we can speculate it's a year or 2 years. I have no idea when that is. That's up to her. But she is a McDivitt star. She will always be a McDivitt star. And if she could stay with us, we would obviously like the board to vote no to this as well. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jen. I also did not plan to speak tonight, but we feel the same way about Mrs. Coletti as you do about Dr. Rico. She runs a school beautifully. She stands at the door every single morning and greets every single child, all 558 of them. She comes to every school event, after school, all the things that are planned. She helps run every event, and she's always there with a smile on her face. Always. She knows almost every child's name, and a lot of the parents too, the same parents. That's it. We love her just as much as you love Dr. Rico. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dee. Of course, I wasn't prepared to speak tonight, but I do speak from my heart, and I speak as a parent this evening. Mrs. Coletti has been very impactful on my family for many of years now. I think it's wonderful how every one of you stood up tonight and spoke so beautifully about Dr. Rico. Mrs. Coletti has a beautiful heart. She is a beautiful person, and I definitely feel in my heart that when her time comes to retire, she built McDivitt, and she deserves to see out a beautiful legacy that she so richly built. And I ask you also to please reconsider this transition and allow all of our families to just enjoy the benefits that we still have and that we've still adjusted to for both principals. Thank you very much.
Any other public comments? Well, I would personally like to say this is on the agenda for next week, but I think it's very appropriate that we should take a vote on it now. So, move the board approve the following transfers. Can I have a motion?
Marquetta will move it.
I'll second it.
Any discussions from the board and or administration?
Yes. I was hoping to take time this week. I was letting the principals have their time with their staff and their students through the end of the week, and I was hoping this week to reach out and speak to them personally. I would request to not vote on it today so that we can do our due diligence.
I was hoping to do the same thing, to speak to them, because I've gotten letters from parents, I've spoken to Dr. Hoker, and I would like to speak to the principals.
So, Mr. Giordano, you have possibly a motion to table by Ms. D'Antuono. Ms. D'Antuono, do you want to make that motion?
Yes.
Ms. Jodry, do you want to second that?
Yes.
So now, without any further discussion, we vote on the motion to table or not. If it fails, we go back to this. So, we need a roll call. Mr. Mara, on the motion to table.
Ms. D'Antuono?
So I'm voting.
If you want to vote, if you want to not vote now, you
Then
vote
I'm voting
yes
yes.
to table.
Then yes to table.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes to table.
Ms. Lent?
Yes, and I have additional questions for discussion. So
That
we're still going to discuss it after this, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So, Ms. Lent, you are a yes? Mr. Marquetta?
I understand why some members of the board wanted extra time to gather more information on the recommended transfer. I believe that considering the turnout of the community and the taxpayer here, I believe we should vote on it tonight.
Mr. Slade, yes or no?
Yes to table.
Mr. Singh? Was a yes? Mr. Silikowski?
If I vote yes, what am I voting yes on?
You're voting yes on delaying the vote till next week.
No.
Mr. Weber?
No.
And Mr. Giordano? Mr. Giordano?
No.
Want me to do it? So, there were 5 votes to table. So this will be voted on next week.
Can we discuss it further at this point, or?
We can discuss it once we get to it in your agenda, because
Okay.
now it's not up for a vote anymore.
Okay, policy item number 1. Any questions or discussion? Okay, moving on
Sal,
to...
I have a question.
Yeah.
The board committees was revised. What were the changes that were made?
We established the ad hoc committees, we changed from an ad hoc committee to a regular committee, the special services, changed the name of the Community Awareness, Relations and Engagement Committee. So special services became its own committee, is the main change.
What's the difference between an ad hoc committee and a regular committee?
An ad hoc
Sorry.
committee is like a strategic planning committee, for example. It exists for a limited purpose for a limited time. A standing committee exists like personnel, exists all the time.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay.
Sal, is the DEI committee still ad hoc?
Is it? Yes, it still is.
Can I make a motion to change it to a standing committee and not make it an ad hoc committee?
Yep. Yeah, sure.
I second.
Any discussion?
Chris, I'm sorry, we can't hear you at this end.
The motion is from Ms. Jodry, right? Or is that it's from Ms. D'Antuono, seconded by Ms. Jodry, to make the DEI, it's the DEIB committee, correct, at this point? The DEIB committee a standing committee of the board and revising bylaw 0155 accordingly.
All right, any more discussion? All right, roll call.
Ms. D'Antono?
Yes.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
No.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Singh?
No.
Mr. Solikowski?
No.
Mr. Weber?
No.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
So we have 5 yeses, 4 noes.
We'll revise that further for second reading next week.
Curriculum and professional development, items 1 through 20. Any questions or comments? Okay. Finance, we'll be voting on items 1 and 2. Can I have a motion?
Lent will move it.
Jodry will second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Singh?
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ms. D'Antono?
Yes.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Resolutions 1 and 2 pass.
And do we have any questions on the remaining items 3 through 23? Okay. Athletics, item number 1. Any questions or discussion? Non-certificated personnel office, items 1 and 2. Can I have a motion? Giordano motion.
D'Antuno will second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Can someone please just say your name when you make the motion, because we can't hear you at this end, so I'm sorry. Can you just repeat who the... Mr. Solikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ms. D'Antono?
Yes.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Singh?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Resolutions 1 and 2 pass.
And any questions or discussion on items 3 through 6? Non-certificated personnel operational items 1 and 2. Any questions or discussion? Non-certificated personnel other items 1 through 9. Any questions or discussion? Certificated personnel will be voting on items 1, 2, and 3. Can I have a motion?
Slade will move.
Lent will second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Singh?
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weber? Ms. D'Antono?
Yes.
And Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Resolutions 1, 2, and 3 pass.
Okay, and item number 4 we'll be voting on next week. So at this time, we will entertain comments on the proposed superintendent contract.
I just have a couple of questions. Were both of these individuals spoken to, and what was their reactions? I thought it was on 17.
No, we're just discussing
okay.
superintendent contract.
Yep, see, nope. All right. All right, seeing none, we'll be moving on from that. And any questions or discussion on items? Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I got up late. Okay. Jill Callie. I have a question, if it could be answered. I guess it's for Mr. Parton. The superintendent's contract that was written up and is an attachment on the website. There's also an approval letter from the county superintendent. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah, the May 16th letter is from the county superintendent approving the contract. The process is that the county sup has to approve the contract before the board votes.
And he has.
He has.
And in order to send it to the county superintendent, you need a consensus of the board.
The board has to direct that it goes to the county for approval.
Okay, so like at least 5 people have to say that the contract gets submitted to the county?
No action has been taken by the board, but yes, the board has to direct that it be sent to the county for approval.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments on the proposed superintendent contract? All right. Items 5 through 26. Any questions or discussion? Yeah.
All right. Again, were both individuals spoken to? What were their reactions? What are their feelings about transfers? Do either of you want to answer? Both of you?
Mr.
One
Citadini,
of
you and Dr. Hoker can speak to the process. The actual comments made by Dr. Rico and Ms. Coletti would be protected as personnel issues, but you can speak to the process.
Dr. Hoker, you had those conversations. I don't want to put you on the spot, but it'd probably be best for you to lay out the process, which began with notifying the board personnel committee, then both individuals.
I met with both individuals separately. I contacted the board president and the 2 additional members of the personnel committee, and then sent an email to the rest of the Board of Education notifying them that principal transfers would be shared the following day. I can share that both individuals on a Thursday were met with and advised to wait the weekend, and that we would discuss the following Monday. And let me know if I'm going too far. And that they decided not to wait until Monday and to notify their school families the Friday morning. I can address a couple of things. One is I have no knowledge or information that Mrs. Coletti is retiring, that there has been no discussion about moving the school nurse. There has been a request for other main members of the school communities to transfer. However, those decisions have not been made specifically out of concern for too many additional changes to a building. The counselor at Grissom has retired, and a very experienced counselor has been transferred to Grissom. Just looking. And I think that's all I can share without going too far into personal conversations and personnel.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Are you allowed to say if it was involuntary or voluntary? I understand neither, or at least I'm making the assumption, which I know is a dangerous territory, neither requested it, but are we allowed to know if either is preferring to stay where they are?
I think that that conversation would be a personnel item and an individual conversation that took place with the individuals, and I would not be able to share that.
Can you share your thought process behind why you're switching them?
I do think that the one parent that shared the response in the email that was sent and that had also previously been shared with the board gives a generalized perspective of, I agree that both principals are excellent principals and have done phenomenal jobs in their schools. As equally, the parents at McDivitt have shared that McDivitt is our largest elementary school in the district, and yet
Mrs. Coletti can greet the students and give them the solace and the attention that Dr. Arrico has given at Grissom School. I can tell you as a principal myself, I was at Shepherd School for 10 years, and when I was asked, or when I was told to transfer to Madison Park, it was difficult. It was a family. My kids grew up at Shepherd. I had both of my kids while I was there, and it was difficult. And parents came and said, we'll fight it, we'll go to the board, we'll tell them not to move. And at that point, you know, I did understand that new perspective was needed elsewhere, and that it would also benefit my school community at Shepherd to have new eyes come in and potentially see things that maybe I wasn't seeing at that point. And it's another piece of it is even the staff, and when we reference the professional development and we talk about seeing staff over and over again and giving them feedback, going into another building and having a new administrator come in and provide that feedback is also important. Dr. Arrico has gone to McDivitt School and observed many teachers there. Because he's in a smaller school, we share some of those responsibilities. He is familiar with the staff in that building. And they each bring different strengths that will benefit the schools that they're moving into.
So
There's another portion at the end. We'll get to it.
I will let you though. I will let you. All right. Any other discussion from the board?
I have something, Sal. Chris, what about the policy that the gentleman brought up? Can you explain this, like, as far, like, so?
Yeah, the policy and the School Ethics Act kind of say the same thing, which is that the superintendent needs to make the best recommendation that he can with support from his team to allocate all your personnel, not just principals, but everybody. That one does talk about principals. The board has the obligation to consider the recommendation of the superintendent as the chief school administrator, and then what the Ethics Act says is vote to appoint the best qualified candidates. So yes, you have an obligation to vote your conscience, but you have an obligation to consider what Dave and Kathy are recommending to you. So that's basically what that policy says.
Okay, so now, what about where, as far as it says about the recommendation? So if does the board have to be notified through the superintendent, or can it be anybody in administration?
The board can be notified through the personnel committee, through the assistant superintendent of schools, through Dave. Dave's recommendations do come through his staff at times. There are times when every word you hear is not directly from Dave. The formal notification to the board was the placement on the agenda, because that's when it's actually before the board to take action on.
Okay. All right, so just for my own opinion, considering everything that was spoken about here tonight, we had a lot of words thrown out. They had consistency, mental health for the kids. And a few short months ago, I had made the recommendation, while all that stuff was going on with Sandberg, I had made the recommendation, which was scoffed at by some members of the board and the administration, to close Sandberg and move the Sandberg kids into the grade 9 center and move the grade 9 center kids into the high school. That was met with, again, scoffing and a lot of, no, not good for the mental health of the kids. The kids need consistency. They need, you can't just uproot kids like that. And that was for grades 6 to 9, 6 to 8. So my opinion is that the children who are K to 5 need more consistency, especially coming after 2 years, 3 years of all the nonsense that had taken place in the last couple of years. And not to mention that that is also the taxpayer. They do fund the schools, they do pay the schools, and if they come out, we are the board, we are supposed to hear them, we're supposed to be a representation of them. And honestly, if there's nothing broken within the 2 schools, I say leave it alone. Just my opinion.
I have another question. I know you cannot discuss certain conversations in public, but are we allowed to get more information in executive session so that we could do our due diligence and make an educated vote on this?
Yes, the superintendent can elaborate a little bit on some information that the board is privy to that the public is not, if there is such information. So yes, that can be an executive session discussion. If we're going to talk negatively about anybody, Rice notice would be entitled. My understanding is that these aren't, as by law they can't be, disciplinary transfers. So I think a little more information can probably be provided. How much? I don't know. But we can address this in executive session. We're going into executive session for other things tonight anyway.
Any other discussion? Okay. Moving on to non-certificated personnel transportation, items 1 through 5. Any questions or discussion? No. Yeah, sorry. Yes, transportation, items 1 through 4. Any questions or discussion? Okay. Supplies, equipment, and services, items 1 and 2 to be voted on. Can I have a motion?
D'Antuono will move.
Slater second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to remove resolution number 1 for discussion.
Okay, go ahead.
Considering that we don't have any options to compare our mark to, and I guess timing is everything, I've gotten several complaints and concerns about the lunches at some schools. I'd like to know if there's any options that we can have other than just renewing their contract. Do we have an option to get other services to compare it to?
So at this point, we are in the, we will be in the 5th year of a 5-year contract with them, which is renewable or cancelable each year. If we were going to cancel this contract, we were required to do that in April. So we really have no choice at this point other than to renew it. And in addition to that, until we renew this contract, and this is a standard resolution that's on at this time of the year, the state is presently holding over $250,000 worth of food service receipts from us. So we will be going out for RFP for food service probably in December for next year, and also for custodial services.
So this is their last year?
Pardon?
This contract renewal is their last year?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
I would just like to add into the discussion that when I first took my position here, that was one of the first things I had brought up, and I was once again met with scoffs and by many board members and the administration how I was wrong for doing that. So I just want to throw that out there that I also brought that up. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I have also had conversations with the public about the lunch, but I have also had good interactions with Tim, the head of Aramark, as far as the food service. Has been very curious as far as what families are saying, and I know has worked with Mr. Mara to address the concerns. So concerns are not going on deaf ears, and they are trying to be addressed.
And in addition, Jay Slade and I went and ate lunch at Salk just to see what they were talking about, and we did talk to Mr. Cavalier as well, and he's working on a couple of things to improve the lunches, but it's mostly a staffing issue.
Any other discussion? Okay, items 1 and 2, roll call.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Singh?
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Ms. D'Antuono?
Yes.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Resolutions 1 and 2 pass.
Okay, and items 3 through 20. Any questions or discussion? Okay. Moving on to miscellaneous items 1 through 12. Any questions or discussion? Board Secretary and Board Business, item number 1. Any question or discussion? Okay. Now move on to hearing of residents on any school district issue.
So I just have a question.
Can you just state your name again?
Sure. My name is Corinne Paglucci, And I have a question. The policy is very specific. It does not say the assistant superintendent or any other administration. The policy states, and I'll read it again, just that one short line. The board will not hold its approval of the superintendent, again, superintendent's recommendation for the arbitrary and capricious reasons. My question to you is, how can that be interpreted any other way? It says superintendent. Was the policy really followed?
Darren Asatuli.
Hold on, Darren.
Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, just a second.
Yep.
Well, actually, no, we could go and we'll answer questions at the end. Yeah.
You see these parents here tonight, Mrs. Hochul? I'd ask you one question. We want a little bit of transparency. It's a very simple question for you. What's the reason why this is happening? We're going to find out. We have a few leads out already. What is the reason? We're here for 3 hours. Kids are crying. We understand that the board has to make a decision, right? The question is very simple. What is the reason that they're getting? Is it you are not allowed to tell the parents here today? Is it by law you're not allowed to state why you're doing that transfer? I ask you the question because it's going to come out. It'll be here next week, I promise you that. The thing is, can you please just have some transparency and answer the question? Or somebody else can answer it. Maybe Citadino can. Maybe you can do it. Can somebody answer that question right now? What is the purpose of why they're getting switched? It's really simple. Is it against the law, Mrs. Hochul, to share that with us, yes or no? Please just answer yes or no. I'm asking Mrs. Hochul.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're
we're
gonna get
asking
to
her
it
if it's
at the end.
legal, so you know.
Is it? I'll ask you then.
Can we get back? Can we get
Well,
into this now?
can you just express all your
Just
questions and concerns
Very
first?
simple. Why are they making the switch? That's it. Is there something wrong? Just making a switch. Was there anything promised possibly? Was there a future on something? You probably know where I'm going with this, right? Everybody has future aspirations in their jobs, right? So can somebody answer that question? Chris, are you allowed to tell the parents today who are seriously concerned? These kids have suffered enough. On a serious note, Chris, enough's enough. We've been asking for transparency forever. We come to these meetings, just tell the truth. That's it. Let's not dance. Can somebody answer that question? Is it against the law to tell the parents here today, look at this. I understand that sometimes you have to make a move in your district. All 9 of you have a very big decision to make, right? But if you can see what's happening, it's like the parents come here, and sometimes you brush them off. Don't brush us off. We've suffered, my children, their children, for 2 years. 3 years, we can't make up that gap. Now you want to make a move? What's the reason? Can someone share that, yes or no?
No.
Why not?
It's a personnel issue.
Is it against ethics or against, tell me why. Is it
So-
against the law, Chris?
It can be, yeah.
It can
And
be or it
now,
is?
I'm not going to speak to what the reason is because I don't know what the reason is.
Okay.
But the answer to your question is it against the law?
Yeah.
Yes, there are times when there are personnel issues that can't be brought to the public because that privacy belongs to Ms. Coletti or Dr. Arico.
Mhm.
So without speaking to what the cause is here, which is not a legal question, I can answer your question that yes, there are certainly times when it would be illegal for Dr. Hoker to tell you what the precise reason for an administrative decision is. Whether it be a transfer, a hire, a leave approval, there are plenty of personnel issues that cannot be publicly discussed in detail. And that's difficult, and I get that. But the privacy belongs to the employees, and we don't have the right to waive that privacy, only they do.
So basically, what you're saying is you can't discuss it if it's part of if it's a personnel issue. But let's say, for example, Chris, there is no personnel issue, none. and it comes to light that there was no personnel issue, how are we ever going to find out why this happened? We're the taxpayers, right? We have a right to know what's happening, don't we? And it should be transparent, shouldn't we? That's why everybody got voted in here, correct? Because we all have one best interest, that's the children. You'd all agree, right? We would all agree, right? So in the best interest of the children, is it the right thing to do to transfer them without no personnel issues? Because word has it, there is none. I can't say for sure. Word has it, there is none. Maybe you guys know, I don't know. Things around that it's not the case. How can we 100% be sure of how this is going to happen and why? Will we get that answer, or are you just going to make the move and we're going to have to deal with it? These parents right here, each and every one of them are going to have to deal with it, because that's not going to go over well, right? How do we actually find out? If there's no personnel issues, because none, zero, will you be able to share why the transfer comes if there was no personnel issues at all? And say maybe it was a business decision because you felt maybe they could do a better job someplace else. Would that be okay to share?
Yes, that kind of information can be shared, just like with the hire of an English teacher.
Okay.
The answer is sometimes that the administration felt that was the best person for the job. It may be that simple. It may, and I believe that is the answer that Dr. Hoker gave before, not to put words in her mouth, but sometimes it's that simple. In that case, the answer is easy, public, and probably very unsatisfying. Sometimes when there's a bigger reason, it is more protected. I'm not saying that is the case here. But there are times, getting back to your original question, that yes, the administration and even board members are prevented from telling you what the reason is.
So would you agree that this is probably not one of those times?
I would not agree with that.
So who would?
I don't know the answer to that.
Who does know the answer? Who does? Mrs. Hochul, seriously, is it being transferred? Because if it's not a personnel issue, you can share why it's happening, right? Why? So just talk. We're all here we're here together. I mean, can you? Why not? What's the holdup, right? I mean, just let us know. That's all. It's very simple. If you can. If you can. If you can't, if it's not a personnel issue, you can share why the transfer is. And I'm telling you, you can put the parents at ease. And we could have they can have a conversation and go home with something. These kids are out. It's 9:20. If you can answer the question with transparency, and you're allowed to, I would highly recommend please do, because it's going to come out. I'm telling you. Please share with the parents the truth of the matter so we can all move forward together, not separate. We've had enough of the separation. New Jersey is ridiculous with the way they treat the parents, and we come to the meetings with it's visceral. Can you answer the question? That's what I want to know. You're looking at Dave. Can you? That's all.
There's not a back and forth, so that's why
So
I'm
tell
not
me what the answer is then. All right, Dave, you got it?
We're not following our protocol. So there's not a back and forth. So if the question becomes complete, then we can answer the question. But we don't have a back and forth where you ask a question, I answer your question, you go back and forth. Complete your question, we close public, and then all questions are answered.
Answer my question then, Dave.
No,
Is it a
so
personnel
time is
issue,
up.
or you're
Yeah.
just transferring for the betterment of the district? Can you answer that question, sir? Yes or no?
So, Mr. Astilla, at this point, your 5 minutes is up. We have your
That's
question.
okay. I'll stay for 10. Call
No,
security.
no,
Just
but-
answer the question.
But let me finish what I was saying.
No,
We
let Dave finish, because he can
We
answer
have
it.
your questions, so now let Mr.
Please.
Savino, Mr.
Go for it.
Giordano answer them.
Well, is there anyone else first? Yeah.
Anyone else?
Anyone else want to go? Okay.
Okay. Hello, it's Amanda Caffrey again. I appreciate the desire to talk to the principals, and I really encourage everyone on the board to talk to the principals to get their side. I'm sure that they'll be willing to share information with you. As parents, we've been asking the administrators to share the reasons, and I just have to say it's very frustrating that we're not getting answers. We've expressed concerns for the kids, and we've heard that the principals were handpicked after analysis, yet we're not being shared any information about the analysis. That does not sound like a personnel issue to me. So as a parent, I would like the board to share information on the analysis that occurred to make the determination to hand select these two principals and disrupt over 750 students. That's my question.
Chris Pancini. Once again, like we all stated, is this a Hochul Citadino transfer or is this a community transfer? Because we're a community. These are our kids. These are our kids. Okay? I don't know if you have kids in Grissom or McDivitt, but we all do. So we're not going to sit here and just dance around answers. We're not going to dance around this. Because this is a very small community, and like we said before, it's going to come out. It's going to come out. This is not a Hochul Citadino like show transfer just because. That's why we have a board, and that's why we kindly ask the board to vote no once again.
Christina Mazzone. So my question is in many of the emails that I went back and forth with Dr. Holker with, it's, again, we never got one answer. And I think as us as parents who are in the school, we see our kids every single day with this man. How is it okay to rip this stability that they have from both schools? You heard from parents from McDivitt as well. She does the same thing with her students. If something is not broke, you don't fix it. And the problem is we don't get answers. We have watched for our kids for the last 3 weeks cry, asking us, Mom, why is he leaving us? Is that fair to these kids? These kids shouldn't, I wish I can show you guys videos and pictures from the last day of school. It was mortifying. It was absolutely horrendous to watch these kids hysterical crying as if he, God forbid, just died. And I'm not even exaggerating that. And to not get one answer from anyone, is just beyond me. There is no reason for this change whatsoever. Both schools are thriving. All schools are thriving. You want to do a district change, then do a district change. You don't single out two schools. You do a district-wide change, then we all understand it. To your question, you wanted to speak to both principals, and I understand that. Do you think that we would bring this many people out here, kids crying, if this principal wanted to leave? I understand that you guys want to think about it. I understand you want to talk to these principals, but do you think that these principals want to leave? They don't. They don't. And the fact that you guys can just sit here and not feel it, how would you like it if this was your kids? If you had to watch your kids come out of school every day in tears, I don't think that it would be sitting that well with you guys. So please, just take these kids into consideration. It's not about us. It's not about our parents. It's not about you guys. It's about these kids. These kids love their principals, love them. Why change it? Why? It makes absolutely zero sense. And now to make these kids wait yet another week, which we will be back. We will have the same crowd we had tonight. We will be back next week to watch this vote. Because it's not fair that nobody knows what's going on. Nobody. Nobody. And for years and years, and I'm sure there's many topics that people just, you know what, like, okay, this is their job, they'll do the best. You guys are not doing the best interest for us kids, for our kids. I'm sorry, you're not. And if we voted you guys in to take care of our kids, you guys are failing us, so why should we re-vote you guys in? Makes no sense.
My name is Katina Butts again, and I have two questions. The first question is, if we come back next week, we want answers if this is not a personnel issue. Will the if this is not a personnel issue, will the principals have opportunity for legal action against the board? That's my first question. My second question is, I want to know who appoints the administrators.
Yeah, we just want to hear from everyone else, and then we're going to answer the questions. You good? Okay. All right. Answer the questions. Yes. Public portion's closed. Thank you.
All right, so the question about is it a personnel issue? There's a difference between personal and personnel, and I'm assuming everyone understand that. Any move of personnel is a personnel issue. Because if I said to you, and I wish I wish I can give you more information, but if I said to you, Principal A does this really, really well, and Principal B does this really, really well, and that's why we're making the transfer, it implies that Principal A does one thing better than Principal B, and that is a violation of the PERC, which is the Public Employee Relation Commissions Act. I can't discuss at a public meeting personnel issues of that nature. So I can't say, I'm moving this person because they do this really, really well, because it implies that the other person doesn't do something really well. And I hope you can understand that piece of it. It's between a rock and a hard place. I want to give you as much information as I can, but these employees are also protected by the law. And I just can't just say everything that would go into an administrative decision. And trust me, this is not a leadership team that just randomly goes to transferring people. I think my record and our record speaks for that. Prior to me becoming superintendent, every 5 years principal got changed, all of them. And I don't believe that's the right way to operate. I don't think you just do it without any analysis of it, just do it because it's a merry-go-round and it's time to change people. We do it based upon changes in schools, changes in dynamics, changes in the needs of the schools, changes in enrollments. All of these different things play a role in it. And as we look at it, we make these decisions, and not easy decisions. Trust me, I would wish that no one was upset about this, that no one was going on. But I have a responsibility, and as does all the board members, to look out for the community and the district as a whole. What serves the whole, all 11 elementary schools, both middle schools, the high school campus. What serves that? Over the past 5 years, 6 years, there has been several changes administratively. There has been transfers. This is not the first one in the past 5 years. We transfer teachers, counselors, nurses on this time of year every year. There's plenty of them on this agenda. But I can't go into discussing why each one of them is being done because, again, they are protected under PERC for those reasons. It's not personal, it's personnel. And I will discuss that with the board tonight in executive session. And if the board feels as though those are good reasons or whatever they want to do, they can feel free to do what they like with it. But I can discuss it with them. I cannot share it with the public. Oh, who appoints the administration? Specifically, I'm appointed by the board, and I make recommendations for everyone underneath me, from Dr. Hoker to paraprofessionals to bus drivers to bus aides. And then the board votes to either support or not support those decisions.
Thank you. We'll be moving on to old business. Okay. Any new business?
I have a question about new business. It was brought up today to make the DEI committee, to remove it from being an ad hoc, and we had 4 members that voted no against making it a regular committee, not an ad hoc committee, and I was just curious if any of those members want to speak up on why they voted no against this. I think this is an important topic, and I think it shouldn't really be an ad hoc committee anymore. Do any of those members want to speak up about why they voted no on it?
Sure, I'll be happy to. The DEI initiation, was as I understand it, was a move by the state, and I felt at the very beginning when that proposal was made that a non-professional committee that doesn't have the resources that the administration should have, meaning the psychologists and whatever qualified people they needed. So I felt that eventually you would be making recommendations that may run contrary to the law and their help. So I vote, if it's kept as we didn't vote to say you're never going to have a committee. We just said it's not a permanent one. That's my feeling. I mean, I think they took a hot potato away that should be handled by our professional staff, in my opinion. And I don't think, with all due respect to the board members, including myself, that I'm certainly not qualified to make those kind of decisions when there's a professional administration that all the taxpayers pay for, that you can't necessarily, are you going to manage that part of the administrative team when you have to call in the professionals? So that's my reason.
Isn't the DEIB a legally required committee, ad hoc or otherwise?
It's not required, no.
But also, doesn't the committee work in conjunction with the administration? So it really wouldn't be allowed to do anything illegal? And speaking on certifications, I am legally certified to host classes and education on it. And I am one of the members on the DEI committee, so I would assume that I wouldn't be committing anything illegal by trying to establish more diversity and inclusion inside the district.
Well, just to answer that, Ms. Lent, the board committee structure, you don't take action as committees. The DEIB committee would not be holding a hearing any more than the negotiations or personnel committee would be holding a meeting. You make recommendations to the district. Your professional qualifications are not directly relevant to your appointment on that committee, because if we had 3 retired superintendents on the board, which I'm not encouraging us to do, they could not be the personnel committee and hire people. They would still be within the role of a committee. But no, the number of committees that are required and actions that are required at the state level, like HIB, does not run contrary to the existence of a DEIB committee. They can operate in that way without violating the law, but you're not taking action. It's just another committee.
Okay. Any other new business? I just want to say thank you everyone for coming. Congratulations to the class of 2023. Get your degrees done as quickly as possible. Save yourself money, save your parents money, and in a few months, possibly my money. So thank you and good luck. Any other new business?
I just wanted to speak as to why I wanted more time. As an elementary parent myself, I understand the structure and the second family that your elementary school provides. I wasn't going to try and talk to any of the staff or disrupt any of the administration the last week of school. It's critical. It's a big part of your family. I got your letters. I responded to each of them. You know, I'm here to listen. But to make a due diligence vote, I talked to everyone involved. I spoke to Dr. Hoker. I speak to the other members of the board. But I'm going to also speak to the principals. So that's why I asked for the extra week. Not to put your families through another week of stress and turmoil. You guys have enough. You're home with your kids 24/7 now. They're all yours. The teacher said, tag, you're it. But I owe it to myself, to you, and to the principals involved to have that conversation. So I wasn't trying to insult you by asking for that extra week.
And by doing that, we're not negating anything that you said at all tonight. We just, for ourselves, have to have a full picture and understand all sides of it.
Just to piggyback on what you all just said, I really appreciate the passion all the parents displayed tonight. I wish every topic was approached like you all approached this topic. And I was one of the people that voted to table it tonight. Just like you, I have a lot of unanswered questions that I want answers to. Even if they can't explain it to the public, I would like to know why things are being done and what I'm voting on. It's not to prolong this another week, and I hope you all do come back next week. I appreciate you taking the time and talking about this, because all subjects should be discussed. These are your children, and we are all up here trying our best for your kids. And sometimes it just takes a little bit extra time for us to understand what we're going to be voting on so that we make the best decision for your children.
Okay, any other new business? All right, we will be going into executive session for personnel matters, matters covered by attorney-client privilege, and pending or anticipated litigation, and we will adjourn from there. So can I have a motion to go into executive session?
Lent will move it.
Okay, second.
D'Antino will second.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The board will go into executive session at 9:36 p.m. Thank you and see you next week.